Something terrifying just happened to China's Navy near the Spratly Islands, and the Pentagon is watching every second of it. Over 40 Chinese warships, including 2 aircraft carriers, just experienced catastrophic system failures during a live fire exercise, and what the satellites captured is absolutely jaw-dropping. Multiple destroyers went dead in the water. Submarines surfaced unexpectedly, and China's newest carrier couldn't even launch a single jet. Was it an engineering disaster, a U.S. cyber attack, or something far worse? This is New Rotation, and today we're breaking down everything you need to know. Hey everybody, it is March, and something just happened near the Spratly Islands in the South China Sea that has the entire Pentagon on high alert right now. China just deployed the largest naval flotilla they have ever assembled in the contested waters around Mischief Reef. And I'm talking over 40 warships, including their brand new Type 055 Renhai class destroyers, multiple Type Z-154A frigates, and at least 2 of their aircraft carriers, the Shandong and the Fujian. And what happened next has defense analysts around the world scrambling, because multiple vessels in that flotilla experienced what is being described as a catastrophic system wide failure during a live fire exercise, and the implications of what that means are absolutely massive. I'm Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, former F-15E Strike Eagle combat fighter pilot, former F-16 Thunderbird pilot, Boeing 737 pilot, and Airbus A220 pilot. And today I am breaking down exactly what we know happened to China's Navy, why it matters, what it tells us about the real combat readiness of the People's Liberation Army Navy, which is the PLIN, and what the United States and our allies in the Indo-Pacific are doing about it right now. But stay to the very end of this video, because I am going to give you my full strategic debrief on what I actually think is going on here, why this incident might be the single biggest intelligence gift the Pentagon has received in the last decade, and what I think happens next in the South China Sea over the coming months. You absolutely do not want to miss that. So let me set the stage for you real quick, because this did not happen in a vacuum. Tensions in the South China Sea have been escalating steadily for the past 18 months. The Philippines has been increasingly assertive about their territorial claims around Second Thomas Shoal, and the United States has been conducting more frequent freedom of navigation operations, which we call FOMOPs, through the Taiwan Strait and the Spratly Island chain. China has responded by accelerating their island building campaign, militarizing artificial islands with anti-ship missile batteries, radar installations, and even extending runways capable of handling their J-20 stealth fighters. In the last 6 weeks alone, there have been at least 7 dangerous intercepts of U.S. Navy P-8 Poseidon surveillance aircraft by Chinese J-16 fighters, some of them coming within 300 feet, which is absurdly dangerous and provocative. So the region has been a powder keg, and what just happened might have lit the fuse. Or, and this is where it gets really interesting, it might have actually revealed that China's fuse is a whole lot shorter and a whole lot more fragile than anyone realized. Before we dive deeper into this, I want to hear from you guys. What do you think is really going on in the South China Sea right now? Do you think China is actually ready for a real naval confrontation, or do you think this is all smoke and mirrors? Drop your take in the comments below. I read every single one of them, and I genuinely want to know what you think. Alright, so here is what we know based on reports from multiple sources including Reuters, the Associated Press, and statements from both INDOPACOM, which is the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command headquartered in Hawaii, and from the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force who had surveillance assets in the area. On or around June 28th, China assembled a massive naval task force in the waters surrounding the Spratly Islands, specifically concentrated near Mischief Reef, which sits about 130 nautical miles west of the Philippine island of Palawan. This flotilla included at a minimum the aircraft carrier Shandong, their Type 002 carrier, the Fujian, which is their newest Type 03 carrier equipped with electromagnetic catapults similar to what we use on the USS Gerald R. Ford, at least 6 Type 055 Renhai-class guided missile destroyers, which are roughly 12,000-ton warships that the Pentagon classifies as cruisers because of their size and firepower. A Type 004A Jankai-class frigates, multiple Type 039A1 class diesel-electric submarines, and a fleet of support and logistics vessels. This is not a routine patrol. This is a show of force that dwarfs anything China has done in the South China Sea previously. Now, here is where things take a very unexpected turn. During what appears to have been a coordinated live-fire exercise on July 1st, multiple vessels in the flotilla experienced simultaneous electronic and weapons system failures. Satellite imagery obtained by commercial providers and analyzed by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, shows at least 3 of the Type 055 destroyers dead in the water, meaning they were not moving and appeared to have lost propulsion. The Fujian, their crown jewel carrier, was observed listing slightly to port. That means leaning to the left side, and her electromagnetic catapult system, which they call EMALS just like we do, appeared to be non-operational with aircraft on the flight deck, but none launching. Additionally, at least 2 of their Yuan-class submarines surfaced unexpectedly, which for a submarine is about the worst thing you can do during an exercise, because the entire point of a submarine is to stay hidden. When your subs are popping up to the surface like corks during a live fire drill, something has gone seriously wrong. And what happens next is going to challenge everything you have heard about China's naval capabilities, because the response from Beijing was absolutely fascinating. Instead of acknowledging any issues, the Chinese Ministry of National Defense released a statement saying the exercise was a complete success and that all objectives were met. They showed footage on CCTV, their state media, of missiles launching and jets taking off. But defense analysts quickly noticed that the footage appeared to be recycled from a 2023 exercise. China doing what China does best, which is propaganda. They are like that kid in school who clearly failed the test, but walks out of the classroom telling everyone he aced it. Meanwhile, the teacher is posting the grades, and everybody can see what really happened. Satellite imagery does not lie. And what the satellites showed was a flotilla in serious trouble. So what actually caused this? Let me walk you through the leading theories that defense analysts and military experts are discussing right now. Theory number 1 is a systemic engineering failure. China has been building warships at an absolutely breakneck pace. They have launched more naval tonnage in the last 5 years than the entire British Royal Navy has in its fleet. But there is a massive difference between building ships fast and building ships well. The Type 055 destroyers use integrated electric propulsion systems, and multiple intelligence reports have suggested that China has had persistent quality control issues with their gas turbine engines. Specifically the QC-280 gas turbines, which are derived from Ukrainian designs. If multiple ships experience propulsion failures simultaneously, it could indicate a systemic defect in the engine manufacturing process. And that would be a catastrophic problem for the entire class of warship, not just the ones in this exercise. But here is where it gets even more interesting, because theory number 2 is electronic warfare interference. The United States operates some of the most sophisticated electronic warfare capabilities on the planet. The EA-18G Growler, which is the Navy's dedicated electronic attack aircraft, can jam enemy radar, communications, and weapon systems from significant distances. The USS Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group was operating in the Philippine Sea at the time of this incident. And while the Department of Defense has not confirmed or denied any EW operations, that is electronic warfare operations, the timing is suspicious to say the least. If the US or an allied nation used electronic warfare to disrupt China's exercise, it would send an incredibly powerful message, basically saying we can shut your fleet down whenever we want, and there is nothing you can do about it. Now, I want to be clear, this is purely speculative. There has been no official confirmation of any US involvement, but from my experience in military operations, the timing and the nature of the failures are certainly consistent with what an EW attack would look like. Theory number 3, and this one is honestly the most concerning for China, is a cyber attack. The Palayan has been rapidly digitizing and networking their fleet with what they call their version of a combat cloud, essentially linking all their ships, aircraft, and submarines into one integrated network. But here is the problem with networking everything together. If someone gets into that network, they can potentially disrupt everything at once. And we know from public reporting that US Cyber Command has been significantly increasing their offensive cyber capabilities, specifically targeting Chinese military networks. A coordinated cyber attack could explain why multiple different classes of ships experienced failure simultaneously, because they all share the same networked architecture. If you are enjoying this breakdown, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps me keep bringing you this type of analysis. And I have got a lot more coming on this situation as it develops over the next few weeks. Now, let me give you some important context on why the Spratly Islands matter so much, because this is not just about some rocks in the ocean. The South China Sea is one of the most strategically important bodies of water on planet Earth. Approximately 1/3 of all global shipping passes through it every single year. We are talking about $5.3 trillion worth of trade annually. The Strait of Malacca, which feeds into the South China Sea, is the single most important choke point for global energy supplies. About 80% of China's oil imports pass through these waters. So when China builds artificial islands and puts missile batteries and airstrips on them, they are not doing it for fun. They are trying to control the most important shipping lanes in the world. And let me zoom out for the bigger strategic picture, because this is where it gets really interesting. The Spratly Islands are claimed in whole or in part by China, Taiwan, Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, and Brunei. In 2016, the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague ruled that China's claims, their so-called 9-line, had no legal basis under international law. China's response was essentially to say, yeah, that is a nice ruling, we do not care. And they kept building. They have turned places like Mischief Reef, Subi Reef, and Fiery Cross Reef into full military bases with 3,000-meter runways, hangars, radar domes, and HQ-9 surface-to-air missile systems which are roughly equivalent to our Patriot system. But here is some context that most people do not talk about. China's artificial islands have a massive vulnerability. They are fixed targets. In a real conflict, Those islands would be priority targets for U.S. long-range strike assets like the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber, the B-21 Raider, Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from submarines, and the new AGM-158 JSM-ER, which is the Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff Missile Extended Range. A stealthy cruise missile with a range of over 500 nautical miles. Those artificial islands would be turned into artificial reefs within the first 48 hours of a real conflict. And China knows it. They are useful for intimidation and for establishing peacetime control, but in wartime they become liabilities. It is like building your entire defense strategy around a sand castle, and then being surprised when the tide comes in. Beautiful sand castle, really impressive, but the ocean does not care how many missiles you put on it. Now, let me talk about the Fujian specifically, because this carrier is supposed to be China's pride and joy, and what happened to it during this exercise is deeply embarrassing for Beijing. The Fujian is China's first domestically designed and built catapult-equipped aircraft carrier. It displaces about 80,000 tons, making it the largest non-American carrier ever built. It uses an electromagnetic aircraft launch system, EMALS, similar to what we have on the Ford class. But here is the thing, and this is something I want you to really understand. The United States spent over $13 billion developing the Gerald R. Ford, and we still had significant issues with our EMALS system for years after commissioning. It took us the better part of a decade to work out the reliability problems, and we had the advantage of decades of experience with steam catapults before transitioning to electromagnetic ones. China skipped the steam catapult phase entirely on the Fujian and went straight to EMLs, and the reports coming out of this exercise suggest their system is nowhere near operational reliability. If your catapults do not work, your carrier is just a very expensive, very large, very slow target. It is like buying a Ferrari and then finding out the engine was built by someone who watched a YouTube video on how engines work. It looks great in the driveway, but when you actually need it to perform, you have got a serious problem. And here is something breaking that you should know about before I give you my final assessment. Japan's Minister of Defense held a press conference just yesterday confirming that Japanese P-1 maritime patrol aircraft tracked the Chinese flotilla throughout the exercise and observed, quote, significant operational difficulties across multiple platforms, end quote. Australia's defense minister echoed similar sentiments, and there are reports that the AUKUS intelligence sharing framework, that is the Australia-United Kingdom, United States Security Pact, has been activated to analyze the intelligence gathered from this incident. This means our closest allies in the region are pooling their intelligence, and that tells me this incident is being treated with extreme seriousness at the highest levels of multiple governments. So now you have made it to the end of the video. Let me give you my full debrief. Here is what I actually think happened and what I think it means going forward. As a former fighter pilot who has studied Chinese military capabilities extensively, I believe what we witnessed was most likely a combination of Theory 1 and Theory 3. Systemic engineering failures compounded by potential external cyber interference. China has been building too fast and cutting corners on quality control, and their rush to network their entire fleet created vulnerabilities that were exposed, possibly with some help from outside actors. If I was a betting man, I would say the Pentagon is sitting on an absolute goldmine of intelligence right now. When your adversary's fleet breaks down during an exercise, you learn more about their real capabilities. in one day than you would from a year of satellite surveillance. Every failure tells you something about their engineering, their training, their damage control procedures, their command and control resilience, and their ability to recover from unexpected situations. And what this incident tells me is that China's Navy, while impressive on paper and growing rapidly, is not ready for a real peer-to-peer naval conflict. Not yet. The plan is probably 10 to 15 years away from being able genuinely challenge the United States Navy in a sustained blue water conflict. And incidents like this one set them back, because now they have to go back and fix fundamental engineering and cybersecurity problems across their entire fleet. But I also want to add a word of caution. We should never underestimate any adversary. China learns fast, they adapt quickly, and they have the industrial capacity to fix problems at a scale and speed that most nations cannot match. So while this is a setback for them, it is not the end of the story. We will see how this plays out over the next several months as more intelligence becomes available, and as China responds, which they will. What do you guys think? Do you agree with my assessment? Do you think China's Navy is as paper tiger as this incident suggests? Or do you think there is something else going on here that we are missing? Let me know in the comments below. I want to hear your predictions for what happens next in the South China Sea. And if you want to go even deeper on this, go ahead and follow me on X and Instagram. I am posting there pretty much every day with updates on this situation and other breaking military developments. And then click the link in the description to join the Max Ready room, where I do priority replies to members. You get members, only videos and members, only giveaways. You will be glad you did. And I will see you on this next video that pops up right here. I think you are going to enjoy this one. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, also known as the fighter pilot next door, signing off.